Every text you send, every call, every song you stream, every photo that crosses the planet in a heartbeat. All of it, the entire digital world, rests on a single idea that one man worked out on paper more than 70 years ago. Without him, there is no internet, no smartphone, no information age at all. He may be the most important thinker of the 20th century, and you have almost certainly never heard his name. Some people change the world, and the world never learns their name. This is without whom. His name was Claude Shannon. He was born in 1916 in a small town in Michigan, a quiet, dreamy boy who loved machines more than crowds. He built model planes and radios, and once strung a working telegraph line out of barbed wire to a friend's house half a mile away. He was not loud, and he was not ambitious. He simply could not stop taking the world apart to see how it worked. As a young student at a great technical institute, he stumbled onto a dusty, half-forgotten branch of logic, a system of pure true and false built a century earlier by an English schoolmaster. Everyone else treated it as a philosopher's curiosity, with no use in the real world. But Shannon saw something no one else had seen. That same true and false could be wired directly into electrical switches, on and off, yes and no. He was just 21 years old, and in a single master's thesis, he showed that logic itself could be built out of circuits, that a machine could be made to reason in nothing but ones and zeros. It was, quite literally, the blueprint for every digital computer that would ever be built. People would later call it the most important master's thesis ever written. For most people, that would have been the achievement of a lifetime. For Shannon, it was only a warm-up, because a far bigger question had taken hold of him. For all of human history, people had sent messages, by voice, by wire, by signal fire, and every message arrived a little broken, blurred, and corrupted by distance and noise. Stranger still, no one could even say clearly what a message really was. What, exactly, is information? Is it a thing you can measure, the way you measure weight, or distance, or time? To chase that question, he went to the great research laboratory of the telephone company. Through the years of the war, he wrestled with secret codes and scrambled voices. Surrounded by the problem of sending messages an enemy could never crack, he kept circling the deeper riddle underneath it all. What is information, really? And what are the hidden laws that rule it? Then, in 1948, working largely on his own, he published his answer. It came in a paper with a title so modest that almost no one outside of engineering has ever read it. But inside those pages was one of the most powerful ideas any human being has ever had. Quietly, on paper, Claude Shannon had invented the science of information itself. He proved that all information, every word, every picture, every sound, every idea that can be expressed, could be reduced to the very same substance, a simple string of choices between two options, 1 or 0, on or off. He built his whole theory on a single unit of information that the world now uses 1 trillion times every second without a second thought, the bit. Then he proved the laws that govern it. He worked out exactly how much information you could force through any channel, a copper wire, a radio wave, a beam of light, before the noise drowned it out. And he proved something that still sounds like pure magic, that with a clever enough code, you could send a message through a roaring storm of static and have it arrive on the other side perfectly, without a single error. That one proof is the reason anything digital works at all. Stop and let that sink in. Every phone call you have ever made, every file you have ever saved, every streaming film, every photograph beamed back from a spacecraft, at the edge of the solar system. Every page of the entire internet obeys the laws this one man wrote down at a desk. He drew the complete map of the information age decades before that age arrived. He did not merely join the digital revolution. He invented the ground it would stand on. And here is the strange and wonderful thing about him. He never once behaved like a man who had reshaped the world. At the laboratory, his co-workers grew used to the sight of him rolling down the hallways on a unicycle, juggling as he went. He chased ideas purely for the delight of them, treating the deepest problems in science like toys, and ordinary toys like the deepest problems in science. He built a small mechanical mouse that could find its own way through a maze, and then remember the path so it would never get lost again. It was one of the very first machines that could learn from its own experience, built decades before most people had ever heard the phrase, artificial intelligence. He was only playing, and in his playing, he kept on quietly inventing the future. He built a flame-throwing trumpet and a machine whose only purpose in the world was to reach out and switch itself off, and a tiny wearable computer to beat the roulette wheel. To him, it was all the very same joy. He had the rarest kind of genius of all, the kind that never once stopped feeling like a game. But here is where his story turns away from all the others. He was never robbed of his credit, and he was never ruined and cast aside. Something far quieter happened to Claude Shannon. As other men built fortunes and empires on top of his ideas, he simply walked away from the spotlight. He gave no grand interviews and founded no company under his own name. He had answered the question that fascinated him, and for him, that was always enough. So the world he had built rose up all around him, without ever once turning to look at him. The computer, the satellite, the internet, the phone resting in your pocket right now. Each was only another room added onto the house whose foundation he had quietly poured. The engineers who knew spoke his name with something close to awe. The billions of people living inside his invention never learned it at all. And while his single idea wrapped itself around the entire planet, the man himself drifted gently out of sight, back into a rambling house full of half-finished gadgets and unicycles and puzzles. There he tinkered away, perfectly content, as the enormous world he had made roared on without him. And then came the cruelest turn of all. In his final years, the most luminous mind of the century was slowly darkened by Alzheimer's disease. The man who had taught the whole world how to store and carry memory began, piece by piece, to lose his own. He lived on into the age of the internet he himself had made possible, and could no longer understand what it was. He died in the winter of 2001, 84 years old, in a nursing home, while all across the earth his bits were streaming by the trillions, through every wire and every wave, carrying the living voice of the human race. And almost no one who used them, not one in a million, knew that a single quiet man had once sat down and dreamed them up. But now you know. Every time you send a message and it arrives whole and unbroken, every time a song or a photo or a single word crosses the whole world clean and clear, you are using a law that one shy, playful, brilliant man worked out alone, long before the rest of us had any idea what he had handed us. The information age has a father, and this is him. We pour our whole lives into the information age now. We trust it with our words, our work, and our memories. We just never learned the name of the man who built it. The world you live in was built by people you have never heard of. And now, you know one more name: Claude Shannon. Like and subscribe and stick around, because the textbooks left a lot out. Thanks for watching.